Hi there, my name is Red, and my story is about how I sold my crazy parents. Yes, I sold them. It was my first bold move. How did that make me feel? And why did I decide to do it? You're about to find out. Just don't assume I'm some kind of psycho, because I probably am. I was born into a family of alcoholics. Oh, no need to be sorry. Only someone whose parents also drink will understand. You can't even imagine how awful this situation is, and what you see in the movies, how the mother or father, when they come to a sober state, start to ask for forgiveness from their children, talk about love and hope for a brighter future. Well, it's nonsense. It's different in real life. It's different. It's very different. I remember the day I came home terribly tired, because after a sleepless night with my parents yelling at each other drunk, I went to school and then went to earn money. I arranged with a local longshoreman to unload boxes from a truck. They were goods for a hypermarket. They were heavy and there were lots of them, but I needed money to get by. I worked for 5 hours straight, hardly stopping to rest so I could finish quickly. Because whenever I came home after 9 p.m, my parents would turn on the custody and stupidly do the brains. Where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. My mum was sure I was an addict, and my dad thought I was stealing. But I was glad I wasn't who they thought I was, because I didn't want to be like them. I never smoked or tried alcohol once in my 16 years, and I don't regret it. So, I came in around 10 p.m, thought the folks were asleep, but they were finishing the last bottle. So as soon as I walked in, my mum immediately said to me, "Oh, and we were waiting for you. We just need you to buy us a brandy, the cheapest one, as usual." I did not even have the strength to answer her, so I went silently to my room. But I was never allowed to rest. Dad started banging on the door like crazy.
"Did you even hear what your mother said?"
I was silent.
"Hey, I'm telling you, answer me, you bitch. What, you decided not to say anything? I'll give you a hard time, kid."
Dad started banging on the door and he kicked it in. I didn't even get out of bed because I had no strength left. Daddy pulled me by the ear out of the room and made me go to the store. Angry and disgruntled, I went to the nearest one. I rarely went there because the salesman was too chatty, but that night I didn't care, as long as I bought some sooner and went to bed. As I thought, the salesman started pestering me with questions, like what's so busy and all that, and I said I was really tired. "I've seen your work, good job. Brandy for mum and dad?" "None of your business." "I wouldn't sell to you, you're only 16, but I just know your situation at home, and I know your parents are into." "And so what?" "I can help you." "How? You suddenly make them sober and make them never drink again?" "I can buy them from you." "What? What kind of nonsense is that?" "It's not bullshit. I can buy them and you'll be out of your misery." "And how do you imagine that? That I would just sell them?" "You're unhappy." "What do you care?" "My parents drank too. At one point, they would have killed me drunk, but I wouldn't let them." "So what did you do?" "Sold them for a candy bar and sent them someplace else." "What other place?" "They're fine there. They're alive and well. But the important thing is that they don't interfere with my life." His idea seemed delusional until I got home. My father almost jumped on me from the doorstep and began to empty his pockets. He demanded I give him the money I had earned through honest work. I stood up and asked him how he knew, but Dad just said he couldn't keep anything from his parents. I got mad and my dad decided to take my money by force. We ended up having a little scuffle or something. Then my mum came running in and I smashed their brandy out of spite. They wanted to punish me, but I left the house and went over to that salesman. All I told him was, "I agree." And in return, I asked for toilet paper and left. In the morning, when I woke up, the house was empty. Only some things were lying around. At first, I didn't believe it. I looked in the rooms, checked the yard, but my parents were gone. Then I went to that store, and I asked the clerk where they were. All he said was that I had sold them and that goods sold were non-exchangeable or non-returnable. I was satisfied with this answer and returned home. But there was another surprise. On the doorstep was my cousin Harry. He had come to collect some of my father's things, and I stupidly blurted out that I'd sold them, and I had no idea where they were now. But you know what the scariest part was? Harry didn't come at me with questions like who, why, are you kidding me? He just went silent, and then a minute later says, "That salesman offered you a deal." I'm freaking out. "Yeah, how do you know?" "Shit, Red, they're probably dead." "Are you kidding me?" "I'm serious. What were you thinking? What's he gonna keep?" I wasn't thinking anything. I'd just be so mad. And I'm mad now.
Do they deserve to die?
I don't know. I guess not. I just feel really bad for them.
So go away.
How am I supposed to live?
I'd rather do that than kill them. How are you going to live with that for the rest of your life?
How do you know about him? Harry took a knife from the kitchen and we drove off in some unknown direction. On the way, he told me he got rid of his mother's cat because she was too much for him. He thought the cellar was a fence or something. And then he happened to notice what he was doing with the cat. And it was like that with a lot of animals until he decided to buy people. That's when I got really scared. I didn't take the idea seriously, but what if he really hurt them? What if he kills them? Harry stopped at an abandoned bakery. We got in very quietly, and I heard my mum screaming. I wanted to pounce, but I had no idea how to free them. So Harry gave me a knife, told me to wait for the signal, and he knocked on the door and went in.
Hello? What are you doing here?
Remember me?
I remember you.
I heard you got a new product yesterday.
Yeah, we do. Why?
I wanted to buy some.
I wasn't thinking of selling them at all. They're good. For a bottle of cheap booze, they'll sing and dance to me. It's fun.
Harry jabbered at him and showed me with his hand where the ancestors were. I ran up and cut the rope. The folks were sober and scared. I showed them like, shh, and we headed for the exit. Suddenly my mum asks, how did Harry find us? And I realised I didn't even ask him how. We were walking towards the exit, but the door was locked. And I got goosebumps. Harry, what is this all about?
Red, you are always complaining about something, always complaining about your parents, and I don't even have parents. That's not nice. Why do you get everything and I get nothing?
Is this some kind of joke?
Oh no. The salesman's name is Michael, and he's a schizophrenic. So if anything happens to you, he gets away with it. And I get away with it because I'm invisible. No one saw me. And your parents? I'll take them.
What are you going to do with them?
It's none of your business. Who cares, right? You don't need them anyway.
Mum and Dad stood in silence. They were in shock. I tried to ask Harry to let us go, and in return, I promised to do whatever he wanted. But Harry didn't seem to be himself. I'd noticed a strange thing about him for a long time. Then he gave me a choice. It was either me or my parents. Dad and Mum tried to tell me that no, better them than me, and I was deeply surprised, but asked him to let them go. That was the first time I saw them cry. And while Harry was taking me away, Michael released the door and let them outside. I haven't seen them since. Then, abruptly, my mother walked into the room. Honey, what are you doing? Shall we go to lunch? Oh, I see the camera. It's on, isn't it? Hi, everybody. I'm Red's mum. Mum, you ruined my whole story again. Oh, I'm sorry, my sweet fantasist. Did you tell again how Daddy and I turned into zombies or vampires, or that we sold you out? Well, almost. Come on, dinner's getting cold. Daddy's bringing you something delicious. Mum left the room. Okay, guys, I made it all up. But imagine if it were true. By the way, that salesman is real, only he doesn't buy animals. He just feeds them. My story is fictional, but who knows? Maybe someone has actually encountered this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eliza. I had a difficult period in my life, even the most difficult. Of course, it's a little easier now, but what I went through almost made me give up. I will tell you everything now in more detail. And you, please, like the video, write your opinion in the comments, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. I'm in high school. I'm 15 years old, and I've never been an ardent party girl. Yes, I was the most ordinary girl who studied, helped my mother with chores around the house. My mother had a second marriage. That is, I lived with my stepfather. They had twins, and my mother had absolutely no time for me. On the one hand, I understood that I was an adult, and I needed to support my mother. It is more difficult for her, but on the other, I still felt the need for her presence in my life. But ever since she got pregnant, there has been less and less of her. The only thing left for me is to move on, go to school, and help around the house. Well, then some kind of nightmare began. When the babies were born, it was great, of course. We were all happy, but most of all, I was worried about my mother. When they were discharged from the hospital, something started at home. There was a round-the-clock yell. It was impossible to sleep or do homework in the house because the girls were constantly yelling. Then one, then another. I had no idea how to help her. And on the other hand, I just wanted silence. Once, when my father left for work, My mother asked me to stay and help her with the little ones. I couldn't because I had an important exam waiting for me at school. I couldn't miss it. All of a sudden, she started yelling at me a lot. She called me a shitty daughter, and I was offended by her. What right did she have to call me that? Out of anger, I said a lot of unnecessary things to her. I probably shouldn't have said it, but I couldn't help myself. I shouted that it wasn't my fault that she had remarried and had to give birth. My mother felt like cold water had been thrown over her. She stood up straight and left. Full of anger, I slammed the door and ran to school. By the way, yes, that day I successfully failed the exam, and this made me even more angry. I've never been so angry before. Anyway, just in time for me to step out into the hallway after the exam, Cal came up to me. This is a guy from another group. He has been hitting on me for a long time, but I did not return his love. He invited me to a party in honor of the fact that his parents went on vacation and left him alone in their big house. I decided to accept the invitation and went with him as agreed. I was very drunk that night, and I think I was taken with a first glass of champagne. I felt so bad that I couldn't control myself anymore. All I remember is Cal pouring me another glass of champagne or wine and then inviting me into his bedroom. I didn't even say anything. I just went with him, and I don't remember much about what happened there. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like my whole body was hurting, including my head. Cal started to say something to me, but I put my hand over his mouth. I didn't want to hear it. I got dressed and left. I heard a lot more from my mother, and our relationship heated up. But the problems didn't end there. After a week, I noticed something. I had delayed menstruation. I bought a pregnancy test, and yes, it's like I've won the fucking jackpot. I got pregnant. All I felt at that moment was regret and confusion. I felt sorry for myself, and also terribly afraid. I now did not know what to do and how to be. I definitely didn't want to tell Cal about it, and I planned not to tell anyone yet. My mother knocked sharply on the bathroom door, and I ran out of it like I was scolded. I ran into my room and remembered that I had left the test in the bathroom. A second later, my mother ran out of there shouting, "Are you pregnant?" I didn't have time to come up with an excuse, so I just said yes. She asked who the father was, and I said I didn't know, or rather I didn't remember. She almost had a heart attack. No, I wasn't hoping for anything, and I hadn't even decided what to do about keeping the baby or not. But my mother's behavior made me give up, and I suddenly wanted to give birth to her for evil. She went and wailed every day, slowly dripping on my nerves. She demanded that I have an abortion. I said I was going to give birth. To be honest, I didn't expect such a reaction, but she collected all my things and put them out the door. I couldn't believe she'd done that. Well, how can you kick out your pregnant daughter? I felt a sense of despair and resentment, and all I wanted to do was cry. I cried a lot and every day. It's a good thing my girlfriend took me in. Natalie was kind, and she lived alone with her parents. Nat understood my situation and promised to help me in any way she could. I don't know how long I lay and cried. Apparently it was influenced by hormones. It's been a week, and I haven't heard from my mother. Of course, this upset me even more. My stepfather didn't care about me. I didn't need anyone but myself and my girlfriend. As soon as I thought about it, someone came to the door. Imagine, it was my stepfather. He brought me money, food, and clothes. It turns out that Natalie told him where I was, and he decided to help a little. I didn't expect it. When I asked where my mom was, he said she was home with the girls, apologized for her, and said she was having a hard time, so she was taking it out on me. I asked him to tell her that I was not a scapegoat, and that if it was so difficult for her to think about me, then let her not strain herself. Apparently, she had no place left for me in her life. My stepfather must have felt it too, so it was like he was apologizing. I accepted his help, and then he left. I gave the whole amount to Natalie for my living expenses. We held out for another month, but I needed care, a doctor and all that, and I didn't even know where to go. I was so scared. I was getting even more depressed when someone knocked on our door again. I thought it was my stepfather again, but Cal was standing outside the door. He threw himself on me, kissed me, hugged me, and swore that he would love our child more than anyone else. I couldn't believe it. I thought he was kidding, but it turns out I was wrong about him. Cal hugged me and asked me why I didn't say anything, why I didn't tell him, and all I said was, "Are you sure the baby's yours?" To which he replied that he did not doubt it for a second, and he was right. Cal talked to his parents and they took me home with them. He had a great family, they accepted me, and Cal started working for his father and earning money. I took a sabbatical from school to calmly go through the pregnancy and give birth. In general, wish me good luck, because in a couple of months, we will see our baby.